My career path is not sort of the normal one for what I do. I work on the creative side of the advertising industry. So that means that my job is to come up with ideas for brands and, startups and whatever. So the way I actually got that job, I had absolutely no experience whatsoever and no job prospects. I went to Tufts, and there's not a ton of professional recruiting there. So when I was getting ready to graduate, I majored in international relations. So there's like zero job prospects for that. So a buddy of mine was like, "Hey, you should look into advertising." The first thing I did was just sort of call anyone and everyone I knew to say, "Do you know anyone in the advertising industry?" And any contacts I would get, I would email them, and if they would see me, I would go in and talk to them or talk on the phone with them or whatever. And everybody always wanted to know the same thing, which was, where's your portfolio of ads? And I'd say, well, I don't have one, but I could do this. You should hire me. And they said, well, go get a portfolio and then we'll talk. So eventually I wound up talking to the recruiter at BBDO New York. So finally I said, look, I'll tell you what, just let me intern here. Make me an intern and we'll see what happens. So I think mostly just to get rid of me, she said, okay, fine, you can be an intern. So then I left the office and she called me about an hour later and she said, oh, I just found out our intern budget got slashed, so we can't pay you. And I said, fine, don't pay me, I don't care. So she said, oh, okay. Then she called me back an hour later and she said, well, it turns out that if you're not getting paid, you have to get college credit and you're graduating, so better luck next time. So I called the community college from the town where I grew up and I said, hey, do you guys have an internship class? Where I read a paper or something, and they said, yeah, we have one of those. So then I called the recruiter back and I said, great news, I'm enrolled at Montgomery County Community College, when do I start? That was how I got in the door, and then once I was in the building, I would just go from office to office and say, what are you working on? Can I work on it too? My sort of theory was I would really only wanted to talk to people who had a window in their office because I figured those were the people who'd be able to help me get a job. And eventually, I created some ads for someone who was putting together a group, and I was in the right place at the right time, and they hired me. So the first thing I realized is, I can't I can't do the same thing everyone else is doing and expect to have different results. So if everybody else is sort of knocking on the front door and sort of saying, here's my portfolio, here's what I do, I realized that I needed to do something different. I was very specific about where it was I wanted to work. Now that, I sort of have been doing it for a while and I get approached by young people who are trying to break in or whatever, more often than not what I notice is that they're very vague. They'll be like, I want a job in advertising. And, that's like saying, I want a job in business. And so I narrowed it down to, I think, 5 advertising agencies that I wanted to work at, and more specifically, 5 creative directors for whom I wanted to work. What can I do to sort of reach out to them and say, hey, you should hire me. I'm good at this advertising stuff, and yeah, lots of people have a portfolio, but you should really pay attention to mine because everybody's trying to get their attention. And then I realized one day when I was Googling myself, I sort of came to the realization that I feel like everybody Googles themselves. And unless you have a super common name, like John Smith, or unless you share a name with someone who's like a celebrity, like if your name is Barack Obama or something, you're not, you're going to be Googling yourself. You want to see what there is out there about you. Okay, these are the guys I want to work for. Everybody Googles themselves. So I thought, well, what if when they Googled themselves, I could sort of speak to them at that sort of, private moment where it's like, hey, I know what you're doing right now, and that's okay with me, but hey, you should check out my book because, here I am in sort of this, vulnerable moment sort of where they're looking for information about themselves. Well, why not give them some information about me? baited the hooks and just sort of threw them out there and just waited. And little by little, sort of the results came trickling in. Everyone who contacted me all sort of had the same response, which was, well, somebody else was Googling me, and here's what they told me about it. And I was like, yeah, sure, fine. I'm not going to be a jerk about it if I want them to hire me. But it was universally positive. Everybody said, yo, that's so clever. What a great idea to sort of get my attention. And then they also sort of said, but we like your book also. We like your portfolio also. So it's not like I had only done that one thing. That one thing was sort of the nudge I needed to sort of land at the top of the pile and get their attention. One thing I've been doing since sort of I've gotten into this is I'm very proactive about the things that I do. So if I want to do something like, oh, wouldn't it be cool if there was this website that did this, I'm going to try to do it. And it might turn out to be a piece of shit, but I'm going to try. And I might learn something in the process, and it might turn out to be pretty good. So if I had it all to do over again, I would just do that more. I wouldn't be as afraid to fail. I kind of came to the realization like, well, I'd rather make something shitty than not make something at all. And I felt like sort of, maybe it's because I was younger or whatever, it's like I felt like, oh man, if I do something shitty and it comes out and it's really bad, people are going to think I stink, and people are going to think I'm not very good, so I won't do anything, and that way I won't have to worry about that.